divided this presentation into 3 sections. The first thing I'm going to go over is just some PowerPoint presentation to kind of go over some of the differences between SL and 365 Business Edition. Then I'm going to do a brief demo of D365 without any of the project activity. And then I'm going to refer to Kim to do a demo of Progressus, which is the project add-on extension for D365. And it also works with NAV. He already introduced myself, but I'll introduce myself again. I'm Becky Kukas from AccuNet. Okay, the main differences are in the platform. In SL, you have a choice of on your premises, on your own server, or a hosted. The Business Edition is a web-based in the cloud. Now, the Business Edition is based on the NAV product, which I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but there is an Enterprise Edition, which is based on AX, which is for larger companies. In SL, you can have multi-company or a single database per company, and that's usually based on a preference of if you want to have separate chart of accounts or you want to share chart of accounts and vendors and customers. In D365, when you spin up a company and create a new company, you'll have a separate database per company. There is intercompany transactions that you can go between the databases, but they are separate databases. As far as the basic functionality, in SL, there is not a CRM incorporated into SL. There are CRMs you can purchase or you may already use, like Salesforce or Microsoft CRM or some other solution, and you can integrate those with SL. But of course, that takes programming, and you may not want to pay the extra cost to upkeep another system and making sure that the data is in both systems. In Business Edition of D365, the CRM is built into the product. And there are additional integrations that you can do with extensions. In 365 environment, they call all of the add-ons extensions. And so you can purchase other extensions to even enhance your CRM and other aspects of D365. In SL, there is a fixed asset module. This is just one example, and you can purchase it separately. But in 365, the fixed asset module is built into the product. Now, what you're used to doing in SL is you might copy and paste stuff from other Office applications like Excel, or you export into Excel using the quick query. But in 365, it's even more enhanced. It's fully integrated with Office 365, including write-back capabilities from Excel, which I'm going to demo that in the second portion of this presentation. Power BI can be added in SL. It wouldn't be within SL, but you could link to it from SL. And Power BI is KPIs that you can create based on your data. So in other words, you may want a graphical display of the top 5 projects in your company, the top 5 customers, or budget versus actual data, but in a graphical display. And that's what Power BI can do. And that is a product that you can add on, download for free. There is a free version, and you can still use that with SL. In D365, they've kind of built it more into the product. You still have to have a Power BI account, but you can incorporate those graphical displays within the web pages of your ERP. In Dynamics SL, there is a workflow feature that's coming out with the next edition that can be added to your current SL. It can be added to, is it 2011, Mike, and 2015?
That's correct. It is comes out in 2018, but it's backward compatible to SL 2015.
Yeah, and it's called Flow. And what that does is allow you to incorporate specific workflows for like approving of an invoice. Some of the workflows that are already in SL, like project approvals and things like that, are already incorporated, but this takes it a whole nother level. Now that product is kind of already built into Business Edition. You can purchase Flow to add on to do more things, but you already have some workflow built into the product. Okay, so as far as the terminology, as a longtime SL user, I've got used to what the names of things are. So I thought this was very helpful for other users to understand that there's some differences in what they call things in 365. In SL, you have screens. So you have modules and screens. In the Business Edition, you have cards and pages. A card would be like a customer card. A page would be a web page that could have multiple web parts to it. So that's a little bit different, and you get to customize those as you need to, although they're already roles set up where you don't have to do that. In SL, you have sub-accounts, and typically people use sub-accounts for divisions, departments, in some cases, project-oriented companies that don't actually officially use the project modules will use sub-accounts for projects. And a project is like anything that has a beginning and an end, not like a department or a division, but something you're just going to have for a 6-month period of time or 1.5 years or whatever it might be. So what they do in Business Edition is they call those dimensions. So for anyone who's familiar with Management Reporter, they call the account and the sub-account in MR dimensions. So it's the same concept. You have about 5 dimensions that you can use. Some of them are global and some of them are not. So you could have divisions, regions, customer types, vendor type, whatever you want to do with your dimensions, you can use them all different ways. Now, in SL, if you use order management and AR, those are separate modules. In D365, they call that module sales. In SL, accounts payable, purchasing, and really requisition is all part of a module called purchasing. Inventory, we're used to always looking at inventory in SL, but they call that module items. And it's really just the name of the title of the page. It's really not still inventory. It's a way to group things, and that's how they group them. In SL, we might customize or configure your system, and when we configure it, it's when we configure specific things where you don't want certain fields and certain screens, or if you want to move screens around, or anything that's not what I consider light customization. What they call that in Business Edition is customization. And then in SL, if you want to customize, truly customize, where you create new screens and new processes, they call that in Business Edition development. And with your license, you would have at least one development license, and that would be someone who could do more than just configure your system or minor customizations or personalization. In SL, we're used to basically applying our journal entries as debits and credits in batches. In 365, you do not put things in as debits and credits, but negative and positive entries. And the concept of batches is a little bit different. It's kind of hard to explain, but you could post one entry at a time, and that's basically would be given a batch number, but it's really not the same as a batch. It works a little bit differently. In SL, you have setup screens, and those are usually in each module. You'll have AP setup, GL setup. In 365, they have a concept called posting groups and journals. Posting groups are a way for you to say, I have a general posting group or a sales journal, and you set those things up saying how you want things to post based on the activity, whether it be a payment application or running checks or vouchering, whatever it is that you might be doing. In SL, the system is period driven. In 365, everything is date driven. And what I mean by that is you do set up your periods. You say, for instance, period 1 is January. You would say period 1 is January 1st to January 31st, and that would be period 1. So whenever anybody entered anything based on the date, it would post to that period. Now you can put some guidelines in there so people can't post prior periods and things like that, but that is how it's basically date-driven. In the upper right-hand corner of your SL screen, you can search for screens and reports. You just type in like inventory, and all of the screens or reports that have the word inventory in it will pop up. You can do the similar thing in 365, where you search for screens and reports and different web parts and pages. And so what's nice about that is it's giving you a search for things that you may create special to your system. So you could create how-to instructions, work instructions of some kind, or videos, or anything you might want to have, other links to other outside resources, or whatever that you might have, and you can search on that within your ERP. In SL, you have the ability to create role-tailored menus, which many of our customers do. And the security is separate from your menu, and that's very much the same in 365. But in 365, they have already created some role-tailored menus, so you do not have to create those from scratch, which is very nice. Okay. Now, in SL, your chart of accounts, your budget, all the reporting and actual data are kind of separated out. Like, you have to run a report to see a budget. You might have to go into a different screen to see the budget, but in marrying those together, you usually have to use Management Reporter. But in 365, they kind of put the data a little bit more to at your fingertips. And I'll demo that when we get over to the demo. But what it means is the chart of accounts and your actuals and your budget are all kind of, you're able to view that all at the same time on your screen, depending upon how you personalize the system to how you need that. Okay. In customization mode, you can modify fields in a screen. In configuration mode in 365, you can modify fields, modify your cards and your fields. A card would be like your vendor maintenance screen would be considered a vendor card. That's an example of how the difference is. And you can actually drill down to the fields that you want people to be able to see, change, or not be able to see. In SL, you can create custom screens, but that requires programming. In the Business Edition, if you're a developer, which it works a lot, you don't have to be a programmer, but you can generate your own web services and your own pages, and there's no limit on the web pages that you can create. Okay, time for the demo. Get out of here. Come on. Okay. All right. All right, so I have signed in as business manager, and in this demo company, Cronus USA, which I believe this gets used in other other of the other Dynamics products. So this is just some demo data. And so as you can see, I have a ribbon up at the top, and this can also be changed based on the roles that you create. This particular role has these items on the home page, and I'm on the home page. The home page usually contains things like activities where I might be doing an order or an invoice or applying payments. There is also some quick starts where you can go in and quickly start a process of doing something, or there's also some product videos, getting started, all kinds of guides. There's a self-service section here, and this would be for people who are doing time cards and approvals. If I go up here, this right here is a graphical display, basically a Power BI. It's built into the product, these specific ones. And you can actually change these charts. So like, for instance, if I want to select a different chart, I can come down here and say, I just want to see income and expense. And now I have a different chart. And there's many more charts to choose from. Now, this favorites account, in this particular wall, you can see you can add whatever you want to be here. Like if I click up here and say, manage this list, I could say I don't want to see this one because it's 0. I typically don't use deferred revenue. So I can click on it and say, delete that line. And you do the same thing if you wanted to add a line. So let's say I want to add, let's see, purchase discounts. May not have anything in there, but you can see that's how you do that. And you X out. You notice I didn't click save anywhere. One of the concepts in D365 is there's no save button. You basically just click out and what you did happened. You can always go back and change it, but that way there's not that extra step of saving something. So now you can see it added this other account to my list. This would be where if I was generating some reports and they were waiting on the queue, they would be showing here. Here is a trial balance, and what's nice about this is I can drill down into the numbers. So as a business manager, I may want to keep an eye on specifically, like let's say this account here or this total revenue. I can drill down into the detail of that. I can see this account and drill down even further. That's the account. This is the account. Sorry about that. My go-to meeting's in my way here. But I can also drill down into the dollars and go even further and look down what made up those revenue numbers. And you can use your back button to get back to where you were. And that is basically this page. And here's where you can also add your Power BI reports. You can add them down here at the bottom. Okay. One thing you'll notice is at the top right, there is the search option. And this is for me to change my settings. So if I wanted to go in and go into my settings, I could change to a different role. So let's say I want to be the accountant this time. And what it does is basically refreshes as if I'm logging in again. And that took me to the chart of accounts. I'm going to go home here. Come on. There we go. And then my home page is different now. I might have different items on this page. I have vendors, for instance, on this one. You can also do a search. So for instance, like I was talking about before, you can do this in SL also, but if you typed in inventory, oops, sorry, all the different items would pop up. Now, anything with this icon is a list. This is an analytical of some kind. This is like a setup of some kind. So it gives you an idea. I could type in the word dimensions and do the same thing. You'll see you'll have different things you can go into. Okay. Now I wanted to show you, if we go into the chart of accounts, I find this very interesting. If you are going to go with D365, that would be a time for you to really examine whether you need to change your chart of accounts, especially if over the years you've added so many accounts, you don't even use half of them anymore. And this is a time to really analyze it, because the chart of accounts is formatted in such a way that as you're creating your chart of accounts, you're rolling them up into different items on your balance sheet or on your P&L. So if we go further down, you'll see we have some income, different they kept it pretty generic expenses, but you could break this up into different expense groups and net income. So this is basically your balance sheet and the roll-up of those items. So what's also nice is you can drill down and look at the account balances of these accounts. I can click on the balance for cash, and it pulls up the items that made up this amount. If I wanted to add a new account, I can add it here, or I can add it here, or I can edit an account. And if I hit edit, it's basically taking me to the account, GL account card, where you'd set up those information. Now, because we set up the chart of accounts this way, when we run a trial balance, I've already put in some filters. So I'm filtering on this date because that's when my data is in there, and I can do a print preview to get an idea of what a report looks like. And this is a report, which is probably terribly hard to read, but you can see the idea of how you would run a report, and it comes up pretty instant. Okay. Now, I'm going to go to my favorite thing. And my favorite thing is the write back capability. Okay. As you can see here, I have 5 vendors. They all have ink at the end. Well, let's say this company, for instance, is not an ink, and this one isn't, and I want to remove that off the line. Now, normally you would go into your vendor maintenance screen and you would just change that. Or let's say you have different contacts you want to add, but you want to do this in Excel because you have many vendors and you're making lots of changes. So you would just click this Edit in Excel, Open, enable editing, and what pops up is this. It's really basically a SQL query that's kind of pulling out your data and putting it into Excel. So I'll go over here and make this bigger. You can see here, some things are popping up down here at the bottom. It says New, Refresh, Publish, Filter, Design. Now you can do all kinds of other things, but what I'm going to show you is what would happen if I put in, I wanted to change this one to not have the ink at the end. Then I said, oh no, and I did that to a bunch and I didn't want to do it anymore. All I have to hit is refresh, and it will refresh it back to bring it back from the database and bring it back down into my Excel. But let's say now I want to write back to Excel. So I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to take this ink out, and I'm going to hit save. Then I'm going to hit publish. What publishing does is it writes back to my data. So if I minimize here, and I look at my data and I say, oh no, the ink didn't come out. Well, that's because you need to go off the screen and come back for it to refresh. And there you go. Now, oh, the ink is still there on that one. I must have not saved. Anyway, so that is basically how the write back capabilities work. Now, the way D365 works is you can go out here. It's really just an Office application within your Office 365 environment. And if you want to learn about more apps, you would go to this Go to Apps. You get an idea of the kind of apps that are out there. And it's based on the product and the categories you might be looking for. So you can see here, there are a lot of add-ons to this product. Tax one, there's credit card, anything and everything you can think of. And when we get down here towards the bottom, you can see there is one for Progressive. And that is the add-on we're going to talk about next. So it's professional services automation within 365. And so I'm going to have you, Mike, go ahead and transfer this over to Kim.
Thanks, Becky. Okay, so I think you should see my screen. And this looks a little different than what Becky was showing you because I'm logged in as a project manager role. And so here you can see with that role, we have things that are specific to a project manager, such as timesheets entry or expense report entry. Also approving those timesheets and expense reports from other users, as well as creating new projects. We can also create quotes from our budgets, and then we can also generate emails to resources or employees who haven't submitted their timesheets yet. We can also review some of the availability of some of our team members through this resource and management piece down here, and we can also generate some invoices through this web page. So this is kind of a easy access to daily activities that you will experience or need. We also have across the top the ribbons, more common activities from day to day as well, but then we also add more fields available through the drop down so that it keeps this ribbon clean, but you can still do many things from within one place. So you can see here there's quite a few fields available and actions available from within the ribbon. They're just hidden, so it makes it a little easier to find what you're looking for. I'm going to go to my home menu here and we'll look at some of the activities that are also available, such as creating or generating budgets on my projects. We can obviously maintain and enter timesheets and expense reports from the menu, as well as these tiles on my role page. We can generate invoices. We can enter essentially journal entries to my projects, which would be similar to a project charge entry if you're familiar with SL's project. And then we can have resources where we can create our employees and create supervisors for them, and so forth. So I'm going to show you a project list, and this project list here is based off of my role. So the nice thing, some of the things we have built in automatically is related to your role. So if you're a project manager, you will only see projects that are your projects. We also have a secondary role similar to a business manager in SL, but we call it a person responsible. And so that person as well would be able to see projects that are on they're assigned to as well. The nice thing here is I can drill down to a project that I want to look at. And we also have the project executive role, which is also similar to SL. That means you can have access or see data on any projects. And so that's the project executive role. Now, if I click on the job or project, you'll see that I can see the activity on this project to date. Now, a couple things that are unique or different than what we would see in SL is that we can actually have nesting of tasks. So you can have roll-ups of various tasks into a higher level task. So these are my planning tasks here, and there's 4 planning tasks that roll up to this one planning roll-up line here. And when I'm looking at if I want to look at it in a more condensed form, I just collapsed all those tasks, and you'll see that I just see my project at a high level. So this is all the totals on my project. And then if I want to see it at the next level, I just hit the uncollapse here, and now I'm seeing those roll-ups at the higher level. And or if I want to see all of them, I can hit expand all, and I can see down to the more detailed level. This will help you manage things a little more easily and yet see things at a higher level. The nice thing also is that every one of these fields has a drill down to it. So for instance, this total usage, that just means these are the costs that have been posted to the project to date for this transaction, for this task here. So this 797.90, I can click on the drill down and it will take me to the transaction lines that make up that number. So at any point in time, we will be able to have ad hoc and real-time reporting on things that have been posted to our jobs. Okay. We can also generate budgets to our jobs or planning, and I'll show you that here in a moment. And when we create those budgets, those also create transaction lines as well. So if I wanted to see who or what I expected to charge time to this job, then I drill down to that budget. So this is resource PM1, and they've been budgeted for 8 hours. And when I create the budget, it creates a cost and a billing amount for that resource. And it also assigns it a date as well. So we'll show you how to do that here in a moment. Now, the other thing we can do is we can track costs of various types. So you'll see here I have, this is my total usage cost, but I actually can break that usage cost down, and I'm going to collapse this down so it's a little easier to. I can see that resource cost, or sorry, that total cost in 3 methods. One based off of a resource, and also their expenses, and then also another column called items, which I don't have showing right now. And so by doing this, I can see, okay, these are all my timesheet costs. These are all my expense report costs, or my AP invoice costs here, again with drill down. Okay. One of the other things that we like a lot with our product is that we can add tasks very easily. So one of the things that typically customers will have is you have a standardization of your tasks, whether you have a lot of small tasks or I'm sorry, a lot of small projects, or you have very minimal number of projects but a large amount of tasks on them. Either way, you have the need probably for some kind of standardization of tasks. And so we can create our task list here from a task template. So I'll show you a template here where we can, if I did some tasks, you'll see that I can add from the template any of the tasks that's on here just by selecting them. I can create as many templates as I want. So if you have certain templates for certain type of projects, you could create those. And then as you're creating the job, you just add them on the fly. Okay. I want to show you how we can create a project. So the other thing that's easy and nice is that we can create projects from a wizard. So let's walk through that for a moment so you can see how simple that is. So if you have your project managers, create project wizard, or excuse me, create projects, we can use this create project wizard. And we can see here that we can assign an auto numbering series if we want. So you can increment your project numbers manual or automatically, or I can come in here and type a project number for my job if I wanted to. And then that's my project ID rather than it auto numbering. I can also have a project template similar to the task template, but it's populating key information such as how I'm going to recognize revenue and those type of things. I'm going to make this an order project, and I'm going to link it to a specific customer. So I've filled out maybe 4 fields so far. I'm going to link it to this first customer. And then I can define a start date of that job. These also offer me the ability to do discounts if I want. And then I can link it to a specific budget. So I'm going to link it to my anchor budget, that's fine. And then I'm going to link it to my project manager. And if I wanted to link it to that other person responsible, I could. And now here I'm going to say I'm going to create my task from my template. So that template I just showed you, when I get through this project, it's going to prompt me to add the task. This is a T&M job, so I'm going to leave everything as it is. And then if I want to add those dimensions that Becky talked about, where I can track more information about my job, like the kind of department or the kind of customer it is, I could choose those here. And then I choose finish. And then it prompts me for my task template. I'm going to choose that one. And so within 15 clicks or less, I've now created a project that I can charge time to, and it's got tasks on it. So very simple to create a project. I can remove some tasks if I didn't really want them. So this is my starting point, but it'll allow me to edit the tasks as well. Let's go ahead and add a budget to this project now. So I'm going to show you how to do a budget through a graphical interface. Here we can come in, we can say we want to enter a budget to this job, and I can choose what kind of budget line I want to create. I can put it to a specific person, or I can do it to a resource group, and a resource group would be similar to a labor class in SL, so my developer, consultants, whatever that might be. Or I can put it to a specific expense type, hotel, car, or I can budget to an item, which is an inventory item, which is what Becky showed as well. I'm going to choose to budget to a resource. And so then I choose the resource that I want to enter the budget for. And now I can enter based on, oh, sorry about that, based on the date. Which budget, we'll see what happens here. I can enter budget lines to that resource. Let me see here, I'm gonna back up. Okay. Let's put a little more space here. Let's try entering it to PM1 again. Say okay. Yep. Sorry about that. I can choose also to enter it as a budget for a different resource. Let me try one more. I'm not sure what's going on here. This is not normal. So I chose Mark. And then I can enter down in the grid areas here the hours that I have for that project. Let me go back. I'm going to go to the pair budget instead. So you can see here I have multiple hours to budgeted for that project. I think I might have something wrong with my resources, why it wasn't liking me. So here I put 8 hours to this task, and I could put it in by day. I could also put a budget in if I didn't want to do budget by week, or month. Instead, or excuse me, by day, I could choose by week or month or quarter or year. So if we did year, it's going to adjust these columns. Now I can put like an annual budget for that task line. So it's easy to enter budgets and maintain them. And if I have budget changes later, I can just type over it and change the budget, and I can do it by week and so forth. So it's very simple to maintain budgets. If you didn't want to use the graphical interface here, we also have journal entries for budgets where you can just enter transaction lines that represent your budget. It's very simple to do and edit and modify those later. Some other kind of neat features we have for budgeting is that we can do a repeating budget, so that's similar to a recurring. I'm going to budget the same person over multiple days of the week, so I can budget them without typing in the budget matrix, Kim, for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I can budget me for 6 hours on this task for 4 weeks in a row for whatever days of the week that I plan to have her working on it. The other cool thing we have is once you enter a budget, there's many instances where the projects don't start the day you expect it to start. And so now I have all my budget in, and it's going to start 3 days later. And so instead of going back in and re-entering my entire budget, I can do move date. I can just do plus 3 days like that. And it's going to move the entire budget 3 whole days. Or I could parse and move parts of that budget based on a task or something else. So if one task or phase is going to start behind, you can move just that phase or task. So there's a lot of really interesting and neat budgeting features that we can use to budget. We can also identify someone's availability and then budget them based off of if they have available hours and they haven't been budgeted to another job. So that's called their capacity. So that way you can have a better idea of your resources and what they're available for. Let's look at a timesheet. So once I have my budget in, I can also create a quote from that budget. Go back there real quick because I want to. So we can generate a quote right from a budget. And it's very simple. You just do create project quote. It'll take all those budgeted lines you entered and create a quote document to send to your customer if you want to. That way you have a audit trail of both your budget and the quote you sent, and then you can make modifications to the budget and resend the quote. You can have multiple versions of your budget as well. So that way if you have change orders and things like that, you can track those. Now, I'm going to go ahead and enter a timesheet. Now I'm going to show you how a resource would access their timesheet. So they're usually going to be at their home page. They're going to choose open timesheet, and you'll see the list of weeks that they're available to enter time for. And I'm going to show you a timesheet that I've already partially entered so we can see some of the characteristics of the timesheet. So here I have a project and a task, and then I've also typed in a number of hours per day. So it's very easy to pick another project and another task. So I can pick J10. We can also restrict the entry into these tasks and projects. So if you want to assign resources to a specific project and task and prevent others from entering to that project and task, that's totally fine. So let's say I want to enter time here. If I have overtime, I can come to this drill down and I can say, well, this is 2 hours of overtime. So we can accommodate overtime as well as regular time. And then this we can multiply by a pay factor. So if you have time and a half or double time, we can do that as well. We can also apply billing rates at a billing rate factor of your standard rate. Let's say you bill at a higher rate for overtime, we can do that. We can also have billing rates based off of a project or a task or a labor class or person. So all those billing rates can be defined as well. And those are assigned at the time you post the transaction. So we don't have to run a process like you would in SL where you'd have to run allocator to identify those rates, which also means that you can find out what your billable amount is without running a process at the end of the month. So anytime during the month, you should be able to tell what your billing value is going to be, and I'll show you that here in a moment. I can do other things like copy from timesheets, previous timesheets, or if I have a budget, I can drop those line items in. So there's a lot of choices there on our timesheet. Once I've finished my timesheet, I can submit it, and now we've Now we'll work into our workflow. And so we'll take a minute and walk through the approval workflow and what that would look like. So we can do approvals at 3 layers. The first layer is the project manager, or the person responsible on the job, or someone you've given permissions to. So that first level is always the project level. We can do drill down. The nice thing is here we can see what's been budgeted on this job versus what's been previously charged versus what's on this timesheet. So we can see this is my time that I need to approve right now. There's not been any time charged to this project and task previously, and there have been hours budgeted. So now we would have a all of these are drill down as well, so we can see the details of what that entails. So if I need to, I can reject line items, or I can post them either way. Now, once it passes through layer 1, then we can go to layer 2, which layer 2 is a supervisor or our supervisors. There's up to 2 supervisors on a resource, so we would have that level available where we could approve the time at the supervisor level. And then the third level is a project executive. So this would be kind of like our accounting team, or what you guys would be familiar with if you use SL, is the time review and approval screen in SL, kind of that last layer of post approval before you post it to the job. Now, the nice thing is with our software is we can do any or all layers. So if you just wanted the project manager approval and then you wanted to skip to the accounting manager, you could. Or if they just needed their supervisor, or if you wanted just your accounting team to approve stuff, you didn't want any layers beforehand, it's up to you. So you can use any or all layers of approval, or none of the layers actually. You can post immediately when the timesheet's submitted. Okay. We have those same level approvals for the expense report. You can define a different expense flow versus timesheets. Frequently, I'll see timesheets, project manager and layer 1 and 3, but on expense reports, maybe it's just accounting that's reviewing them. So on the expense reports, you would define only level 3. So a lot of good choices there, a lot of ways that you can review it and push it through. Okay, I'll show you an expense report. Okay, so let me go to a current expense sheet here. An expense sheet is similar to a timesheet in the fact that I can choose my project and my task, and then I choose expense type. And then I'll do a new line here so you can see how it works. I'll choose J10. And here, this is similar to what you see in SL, where you can define your own expense codes. So we have very similar screen where we've defined our expense codes, so they can be what you use normally. We can enter the cost for that expense code. So let's say I have tolls, $12 and $11 by day here. So I'm just populating the cost for those days. Then the billing amount can be determined as well based off of the cost. So you can define an expense type as a pass-through, meaning there's no markup, or you can mark up based off of a percent markup, which is probably fairly common. And those percent markups can be based off of a product and task and things like that as well. So again, you have the ability to define those billing amounts by project, task, person, or resource group. Okay. So once you're finished with your expense report, you do submit, and the same thing applies, and that we can go through the approval workflow and post it to our job. I want to show you briefly the invoice and invoicing screen. So I mentioned as you enter transactions that it's going to capture that data with the billing rate as well. And so here you can see all my billable jobs, and you can see it's collecting the transactions as they occur. So payments are actually, it's a D365 term. It's basically a scheduled billing, so we can bill a payment we want to receive, so a scheduled billing, so we can do that as well. Or we can bill based off a T&M model, which is what we see here. So we have resource timesheet lines that have come through equaling 21,600. We have expense lines that have come through that equal 6413. We didn't have any inventory lines that we want to bill. And I can drill down on this then to see the transaction detail. So when I get to this screen, this is all the billable activity as it's occurred throughout the period. I didn't have to run a process to bring it over to my billing system. I didn't have to run a process to create my billable values on each line. So it's a much more uniform process and easier to tell what has been billed and what hasn't been billed, okay? Because the transaction line has both the cost and the billing value. Once we can approve which lines we want to bill, and then once we do that, we can do create invoice. And if you don't want to bill something, there's this chargeable field where we can uncheck it, and that's going to move it off of the billing suggestion lines essentially, and so it won't be billed with other transactions. So you have the choice of billing it or not. And once we do the create invoice, it's going to hand it over to our billing system. This is a sample invoice I created at a different time. You'll see it picked up my project and my task and my resource, and then here I have my quantity and then the billing amount. And so then this can then be invoiced. So this is handing it over to the D365 financials area now, where we can use all the workflow that's available on the D365 side, and we can generate the invoice as we would similar to in Dynamics SL as well. Okay, I want to take 2 more minutes and show you one more thing. We have one other thing called a main project, and this is something that a lot of customers like, so I want to spend just 2 minutes on it. We have the idea of a project, but then maybe we want to group some of these projects onto one project for purposes of understanding our total cost. So maybe you have an annual contract with a client and you do statement of works to consume that annual contract. And so you want to be able to have visibility as to what that totally is. I did not set up a new contract. So I'm going to call it main 10, and then I'm going to put a task on it, and I can link it then to another project. So I meant to do this before. Insert a new task. I'm going to call this, these are my I'm going to call that 10. And then I'm going to add one more task called 20. Now, I might contract with a customer that has consulting projects and another one that I'm doing development projects on. So then what I can do is I can go over to one of my jobs and I can link it to this main job. So I'm going to go to project pair, and I'm going to link it with my main project. That I just created, main project 10, and I'm going to link it to task 10, okay? So now if I go over and I'm going to go to job 10, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go to job 10, and I'm going to link it to main project 10 and task 10 as well. So these are 2 consulting tasks that I want to see rolled up together, or 2 consulting projects. I'm going to go here. Now if I go back to my main project, I can build these together as well. So if you need to build multiple projects together, you can do that. Now if I come over here, I have both of these projects now are rolling up to this one main project. But I can drill down and see the actual costs, and they'll be coming from both projects. So this is a simple way to see more than one project at a high level. So I know we probably have some questions. I want to give a few minutes for Mike to jump in and give a chance to respond to questions.
Yeah, Kim, one of the questions we had on the expense module is, can you use it from a cellular phone, take a picture of a receipt, upload it? Can you attach scanned images of receipts to the expense report?
Yes, that's planned. Yep.
Okay. And definitely noticing that there's a lot of features and flexibility in this. One of the things I heard when were going through the development of the Progressus module is a lot of those programmers had worked on SL project and kind of used it as a template and said, this is what we've got to do, and then what can we do to improve on top of it? And I definitely see some additional features added. You got any comment on that?
Yes, you'll see there's different things that we've added, things that we don't have in SL, like some of the budgeting features are things that were not available. The way we do pricing and things like that is easier, but we still borrow from the concepts in SL that we can add billing rates and do it at a resource level or an employee level and things like that. So yes, there's a combination of all those things plus new functionality that we don't see in SL.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. And as long as somebody doesn't have music on hold or something, I'll be able to let people ask questions if they have any. Okay, everybody should be unmuted now. Is there any questions from the group? And Becky, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I have a question. This is Heather.
Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
What about inventory management and tracking? Do you have any kind of pieces that might address that?
Becky, I'll let you handle that question.
Yes, in the inventory items is where you would be tracking that, and I'd have to, if you want to switch back over to me, I can show you a little bit more information about how the items work. Can you switch back over to me, Mike?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay.
Did you get that? Did it go your way and make you presenter, Becky?
No, I don't think so. I didn't see anything that says share my screen.
Yeah, it looks like I'm still a presenter. There, that finally went away.
Sorry, user error.
Okay, there you go. Now then. All right, I've got to log back in. Okay, so let me go home. I'm in as accountant. Do I have? I don't know. I think I might have to go in as another user. Hang on a minute here. Yeah, let me go in as
I'm just really interested if there's any differences. If there's nothing that's changed much, and that's okay. If there's nothing different than SL.
Yeah, what I do, Heather, I'll send you a video on the inventory module so you can see those items, although she's getting to it now.
something neat is you can do stuff with pictures, which is cool. Okay, but for instance, if you set up an inventory item, it does do the stuff like quantity on hand, so it does track the items. The costing method, very similar to SL. You have ability, where is that? Somewhere at the bottom, item tracking. I think it's down here at the bottom. You can put in item tracking codes, lot serial number. Somewhere in here it has the, I can't remember where it's at, here's different inventory posting groups. So it's very similar but different setup. Yeah.
Okay.
Put them in categories. There should be something in here on site. I'm not seeing the site section. I know you guys use a lot of sites.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll follow up with you on that, Heather, to get you a little more information.
Okay.
Any other questions from the group? I did record this webinar, and I'll send out an invite to everybody that was on, and a couple people got in late, so they didn't see all of Becky's presentation. So I can send you the recording so you can catch up on that or forward it to somebody else that might be interested at your company. I really appreciate everybody's time. Thanks, Becky and Kim, for putting this on. And I do want to invite everybody that things are changing. I mean, accounting packages are moving to the cloud. That is clearly where Microsoft's focus is. We're happy to come out and do a strategic planning session with you and match features between your existing system and future systems, do demos, and help you start building a plan for what you might do next year, 2 years, 3 years out. So I think it's about that time to start thinking about it. And remember, I'm always a free call, so give me a call and I can walk you through some of these processes. Thanks again for everybody's time, and I'll go ahead and close it up unless anybody's got anything else to add.